It hurts tough because that was the first time in my life that I had a big injury. And for me, it's always like, no matter what happens, just keep going. And I did that, and I made it worse. I've never been injured before, so usually if I get injured, I'm just like, tape it up, let's get it. Like next game, next practice, whatever. And I couldn't do that. First time in my life, I couldn't keep going. I had to sit down, so.
These niggas gave up on me. They gave up on me.
Just in case you didn't know, making it into the NBA is extremely difficult. Regardless if you were picked in the first round, second round, became an undrafted free agent, have a long career, short career, or literally don't even see 1 minute of action. If you are anywhere near the ecosystem of the NBA compared to most regular folk, you're that guy at the game of basketball. The people who play this game, in my opinion, are the best athletes in the world, and to be considered to be maybe be good enough to be a part of a league like the NBA is impressive by itself. If you're out there and you have a chance to make the NBA, chances are you're probably taller than the average man. The average height for an NBA basketball player is 6'7". Think of someone you know right now who is 6'7", and if he could move the same way that Kevin Huerter moves, because Kevin Huerter is 6'7". So if you look at somebody who is less than 6 feet tall, chances are is that he's probably more than likely not going to make the NBA one day. The league is filled with freaks in nature, so imagine how skilled the game of basketball you have to be in order for teams to overlook the fact that you're a walking mismatch the second that you check into the game. Let me introduce you to a man that goes by the name of Isaiah Thomas, someone who was selected with the very last pick in the 2011 NBA draft, who carved out an impressive career for himself considering the draft position, and at one point became a go-to scorer for a team with the best record in the Eastern Conference. In today's video, we take a look back at IT's career as a whole, along with attempting to answer the question, why is he no longer on the NBA franchise as of the recording of this video. If you enjoy the video, please make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. But other than that, let's get into the video. This is what happened to Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah was born February 7, 1989 in Tacoma, Washington to James Thomas and Tina Baltrip. James worked as a parts inspector for Boeing while Tina worked as a nurse. Isaiah's name notably has a funny story. He was named after the Pistons Isaiah Thomas, not because his dad James was a Piston fan. He was actually a lifelong Laker fan. His father would actually make a bet with his friend that if the Pistons beat the Lakers in that year's NBA Finals, then he would have to name his son after the Pistons' legendary point guard Isaiah Thomas. Now, those were pretty high stakes, and when he made the bet, he was more than likely kidding. But by the time February 7th came around, months before that year's finals would take place, James started to like the name and wanted that to be his son's name regardless of that year's finals result. He had the conversation with Tina and she liked the name as well, but wanted it to be spelled like it was in the Bible rather than after the Pistons star. Isaiah was destined to be a little guy. His father and grandfather were both listed at 5'6", and his mom was 5'7", so height simply just didn't run in the family. This didn't mean he didn't try and do everything he could to grow, with his mom recalling a time when Isaiah had different machines that were supposed to stretch him out and allow him to hang upside down to help him grow. Isaiah will always tell his friends and his family, "I was going to be over 6 foot tall someday." Little did he know he wouldn't even have to be that tall to achieve everything he ever wanted to. He first played on an organized basketball team in the 4th grade and he instantly fell in love with the sport. By the time he was in high school, the guy was immensely talented on the court and was starting to make a name for himself. Despite him being the smallest guy on the floor most nights, he would impose his will on his opponents. He wasn't doing anything to adjust his game to the competition either. The same moves he was making in the 6th grade, he was doing in high school now against more competitive competition. Isaiah would change schools towards the end of his high school career, repeating his senior year in order to play for the prep school named South Kent, located in Connecticut. Thomas would be ranked a 3-star recruit in Scout.com and 24/7 247sports.com, but a 4-star recruit on Rivals.com. He had already established himself as a household name in the local area, averaging over 30 points per game his junior season at Curtis Senior High School. His recruitment had little to no mystery, with him making the decision that he wanted to play for the Washington Huskies back in his junior year of high school. Washington was close to home, giving his family the opportunity to see him play a whole lot of his home games. In his first year at Washington, he was able to make his presence known, with him averaging over 15 points per game, with him also being named Pac-10 Freshman of the Year and named to the second-team All-Pac-10 team. In his second season with the Washington Huskies, he would up his scoring averages to nearly 17 points per game, this time being selected to the All-Pac-10 first team. Not only would he just improve his own statistics, but he would also help lead the Washington Huskies to a Pac-10 Conference Championship and a berth in the NCAA tournament, where they would make a run all the way to the Sweet 16 as just an 11th seed. In his third and final season with the squad, he will put up similar numbers to his sophomore season, but will also lead the team in assists, steals, and minutes played, being such a vital player towards their success. Isaiah would be selected as an honorable mention as an AP All-American and was a finalist for the Cousy Award. During the Pac-10 Conference Tournament, Isaiah would play in all but 2 minutes in the 3 tournament games, where he would go on to average 19 points per game, along with 10 assists in the 3 games. He would also have this moment in the Pac-10 title game.
He's gonna do it himself. Thomas, shake, crossover, step back. At the bottom, see, and Washington wins it. On a last-second J. Cold-blooded.
He had a fluid jump shot, which forced you to play him tight on the perimeter because he was going to make more than he missed. When you played Isaiah tight, that's when he would use his speed to go right around you. Isaiah was as crafty as it gets when it came to finding the holes in the defense to attack and to create space in order for him to get a shot up against taller defenders. He wasn't just fast, he had a nice change of speed to his game, which caused defenders trouble, especially at the collegiate level. The thing that concerned scouts was whether or not he would be able to do the same thing against the best athletes in the world, considering his small stature. Isaiah was listed at 5'8" and 3/4 during the draft combine, which we touched on in the opener is extremely short for an NBA player. Most of the scouts thought that he wouldn't be able to score the way he did in college. Yeah, he could shoot when he's open, but he's barely 5'9". Would he really be able to create his own shot in the mid or short range levels against the best athletes in the world? Yes, he would be able to. Despite the numerous question marks, Thomas thought he was ready for the NBA, so he decided to skip his senior season at Washington and declare for the NBA draft on March 31st. Initially, this looked to be a bad move, with Isaiah being selected with the last pick in the 2011 NBA draft by Sacramento. But Isaiah bet on himself. He thought he was ready for the challenge, and he went into training camp and practice every day, fighting for an opportunity, and the day after Christmas 2011, Thomas would get the Christmas gift of a lifetime, making his NBA debut against the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, he didn't do anything crazy. He only had 5 points in the game, but after playing in a few games, he had a game where he scored 15 points, and then a few games after that, he had a game where he scored 20 points. He was getting better and better every game that he played, and on March 1st, Isaiah was named NBA Rookie of the Month for February, averaging over 12 points per game along with 4 assists, ending the year on the NBA All-Rookie second team and finishing 7th in Rookie of the Year voting. Isaiah went from being questioned on if he was even capable of playing at this level of competition, being selected with the very last pick in the draft, to being considered one of the best rookies in that year's class. I want to pause for a second and acknowledge how special of an accomplishment that was for Isaiah to have that productive of a year. There have been some draft picks selected first overall who struggled to find their place in the league their whole career. Isaiah came in his rookie year and made a real impact on the Kings despite him being the very last pick selected. If the story ended here, that would be an amazing story. Hollywood could take that story and make millions and millions off of it. But like most of you know, Isaiah's story was just starting to be written. Isaiah would spend 3 years in Sacramento, and each year he would improve his game, ending his time with the Kings actually becoming a 20-point per game scorer. However, after the completion of the 2014 season, his time in Sacramento would come to an end. The Kings this summer would opt to part ways with the 24-year-old guard in a sign-and-trade deal, sending him to the Phoenix Suns to team him up with the already crowded backcourt in Goran Dragic and Eric Bledsoe. They would attempt to bring Isaiah off the bench while starting Dragic and Bledsoe, and while Thomas was putting up decent numbers coming off the bench, the team wasn't going anywhere with this current roster. So they decided to blow things up, moving off of both Dragic and Thomas, opting to keep Bledsoe, who they were betting to be the potential breakout player out of the three. The Suns would decide to trade Isaiah to the Boston Celtics, receiving back a 2016 first-round pick and Marcus Thornton. To end the 2014-2015 season, Isaiah would average 19 points per game for a Celtics team who wasn't necessarily expected to be a competitive franchise anytime soon. They were moving into an entirely different era of Celtics basketball after moving on from Rondo in the same season they acquired Isaiah. They would squeak into the playoffs that year despite having a below 500 record, but would run into a Cleveland Cavalier team who was on a mission to win its first NBA championship, led by LeBron James. In Isaiah's very first season with the Celtics organization, he would make his very first All-Star appearance, leading the team in scoring, averaging 22 points per game for the season. It would be a solid first year for Isaiah, and with the Celtics owning those multiple first-round picks they got from sending Pierce and Garnett to Brooklyn, the future was looking bright in Boston. But nobody was prepared for the 2016-2017 season. This year was the best version of Isaiah Thomas. He was playing absolutely out of his mind. Up until that season, Isaiah had never had a 40-point performance in a regular season game his entire career. This season, Isaiah would score 40-plus points 5 different nights. The one game that probably stands out the most from that season that really made people turn their heads to how special of a year Isaiah was having was a game in December against Miami where he would score 52 points in the overtime win against the Heat, with them scoring 29 points in the fourth quarter alone. Thomas would average 29 points per game for the year. He would make another All-Star team for the second straight season. He would be selected to an All-NBA team to end the year, and he would finish in the top 5 in MVP voting. Isaiah wasn't just putting up numbers either. The Celtics were winning a lot of games, 53 of them to be exact, which would give them the best record in the Eastern Conference. Now, there was still a king up north with the second seed in the Eastern Conference and a juggernaut out west waiting for them in the finals, so they weren't necessarily favorites, but they were most definitely poised to make some type of playoff run. Right before they got the opportunity to make that playoff run, like most of you guys know, Isaiah would have a life-altering tragedy occur in his life. In the morning, the day before Boston's first playoff game against the Bulls at around 5 a.m., Isaiah's little sister China was driving on southbound Interstate 5 near South 288th Street, according to the Washington State Patrol. Witnesses would say that China was driving normally at first, but eventually began to drift very casually onto the left shoulder. It was reported that the car was traveling around 50 feet partially off the road until it hit a Jersey barrier, which would vault the vehicle head-on into a metal pole holding a carpool sign. She was not wearing her seatbelt and was found dead on the scene. She was only 22 years old. Isaiah would learn the devastating news about his little sister after participating in practice that afternoon and was understandably devastated. The entire Boston organization was saddened by the news, along with everyone else associated with the NBA. Players would reach out to Isaiah to wish him their condolences over social media.
First, I want to send my condolences to Thomas' family. Tragic news of Isaiah Thomas' sister. We all praying for him. NBA family is behind him. So I want to send my condolences out to the family.
It was such a sad and unexpected twist to what has been a year filled with joy for both the Boston Celtics organization and Isaiah Thomas as a whole. Despite the tragedy, Isaiah decided he still wanted to play in the Celtics playoff debut the very next night. He was the team's leading scorer, and they would be at a significant disadvantage. He was the go-to guy. Him and the Celts would take care of business with the Bulls in the first round before matching up with the Washington Wizards in the second round. He would accidentally get his tooth knocked out in Game 1 of the series. He would lead them to a victory after the incident, but in Game 2, on his sister's birthday, he would play the game of his freaking life.
Grazes the rim, tracked down by Horford. Isaiah Thomas! Rozier, Thomas, into three! Thomas high screen from Smart. Wall got picked. Thomas to the hoop. It's good and a foul. To shield and create opportunities. Pivotal minutes. Thomas. He's got it. Isaiah Thomas from long range. Thomas gets it back. 12 to shoot. Mismatch against Gortat. Isaiah Thomas drives in. Kicks it out. Rozier, big shot. Oh, he's got it. 50 seconds to go. Washington up by 1. Isaiah Thomas. He's not human. Thomas gets a step on Wall. Morris there to greet him. Thomas with the flip. Isaiah Thomas, 46 points. And they keep feeding him. Isaiah Thomas to the hole. Isaiah Thomas is a machine. Thomas crosses. Foul called.
Thomas would score a career-high 53 points in a Game 2 victory, putting the Celtics up 2-0. Washington would respond, giving the Celtics all they could handle, forcing them to finish them off in the Garden in 7 games. Thomas would have himself a series, leading the team in scoring by far with 27 points per game. The heroic and memorable playoff run would come to an end, however, in the Eastern Conference Finals after Game 2, with Thomas being ruled out the remainder of the playoffs with a hip injury. Specifically, it was a right femoral acetabular impingement with the labral tear. This is when the hip joint doesn't fit properly. If the bones in the hip don't come together, then it puts unwanted pressure on the cartilage, and the friction caused by the pressure forces the cartilage to tear, which obviously isn't good at all. Isaiah had an extra lump of bone on one of his hip bones that caused the bone to tear the protective cartilage. It's almost like how in a car you have a brake pad that separates the wheel from the brake to prevent the two from wearing each other down. It's the same in this situation. The hip bone in the socket is attempting to fit in, has cartilage in between to prevent the two bones from rubbing together, wearing each of the bones down. This wasn't something that happened after one play either. It was something that Isaiah was playing with for seasons. This was a major problem for Isaiah, who was hoping to have another big season in order to secure a max contract extension that he was 1 year away from signing. The Celtics wanted Isaiah to get surgery, knowing that the lumpy bone was the core issue, and without surgery, Isaiah was going to continue to suffer even after the rehab process. But due to the contract year being just 1 year away, combined with the fact that he's been playing with this issue for this long, Isaiah wanted to instead just rehab the injury and get back on the court as fast as possible. He would have to play for that contract in Cleveland though, because once Kyrie's trade became known around the league, Danny Ainge decided it was time to move Isaiah while his value was still relatively high around the league to get his hands on a player that many deemed to be better than Thomas anyways. Isaiah was heartbroken by the trade, and you can't really blame him to be. With everything he went through and the amount of support he received, it sort of blindsided him that they were willing to deal him for a player that they deemed better than him. Isaiah thought he finally found a home, a place where his family could settle down, a place where he thought that he had a real connection with the front office and the Celtics fans, and he might be the next Celtic great that could one day lead his team back into the promised land, or at least be a contributor to that occurring again. But the harsh reality was that this was the right move the Celtics made. Was it a little nasty? Yeah, I personally didn't like the trade when it happened. But the NBA is a business, and they sold high on an asset at the perfect time before that asset depreciated. I don't necessarily like looking at these athletes as assets and liabilities. They are human beings just like the rest of us, with emotions, dreams, and family obligations. But this is part of what you sign up for when you sign an NBA contract. And even though Kyrie would end up leaving them at the end of his contract, it's hard to say that Boston made the wrong move if you look at the way the rest of Isaiah Thomas's career played out. Before the trade officially went through, a physical examination done by Cleveland Cavalier medical personnel raised concerns about the health of Isaiah Thomas and his injured right hip. The Cavs still decided to go through with the trade despite having the knowledge of Isaiah's hip injury being a much more serious injury than anticipated. Thomas decided he still didn't want to have surgery on the hip, opting to pursue rehabilitation because the recovery time needed for the surgery would more than likely sideline him for the remainder of the year, hurting his ability to possibly sign a max contract in free agency the following year. Despite avoiding the surgery, it was a very long time before Isaiah would get back on the court for the Cavs, and when he did make his return in January, he just wasn't the same guy. He would average around 14 points per game for the year while shooting just 36% from the field, a 10% difference from last year. LeBron and the Cavs had championship aspirations and didn't have time to let Isaiah rehab from the injury, so they decided to ship him before the trade deadline to the LA Lakers in exchange for Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance Jr. Isaiah would improve his play once he got to LA, but he didn't play well enough in order for them to want to commit to him long term. After his stint in LA, nobody was willing to offer him the max contract that he thought that he guaranteed himself back in 2017. The next few years for Isaiah would see him bouncing around the league trying to get himself back to his old form, while at the same time hoping he was able to possibly find a new team he could call home. Was Isaiah good enough to be in the league? Absolutely. He still had the ability to put up points and showed flashes of his former prime self. But those nights nowadays were way too few and far between. He would spend the next 4 years of his career in the NBA bouncing around 6 different teams in the league, never really being able to make a big enough impact as he wanted to. In May of 2020, during the pandemic, Thomas will opt to have right hip resurfacing surgery, which essentially replaced the cartilage that was destroyed by putting in fake cartilage to prevent the bone-on-bone scraping. Isaiah said after getting the surgery, he finally feels pain-free, which I know is a huge win for his personal life. Being able to move around and be pain-free is a luxury a whole lot of us take for granted until we don't have it. As it regards to pro athletes getting a hip replacement, more times than not, you won't ever be the same athlete you once were before the surgery. Add on to the fact that Isaiah was entering his 30s and it had been years since his 2017 run, and no wonder nobody wanted to fully commit to the aging star. As of this recording, the last team Isaiah was on was the Charlotte Hornets, where he averaged 8 points per game, seeing around 12 minutes of playing time per night for the 17 games he played that season. He honestly didn't play that bad considering the limited opportunities he was given, but they opted not to bring him back the following year, making him a free agent. Today, Isaiah is 35 years old and determined to get back into the NBA. He's quoted just last year saying, "My only option is the league." I would love to see Isaiah Thomas on an NBA roster today. The only thing I feel will keep him off of an NBA roster is simply what could he provide for an NBA team, and will he be willing to provide that for a franchise? We all know about his height and limitations on the defensive side of the ball. Could he be a grown-up locker room presence for a young team? Absolutely. Could he come in during moments of the game when you need a change of pace and get you a few buckets? Absolutely. Can he be a go-to scorer on a playoff caliber team? Sadly, I think those days are behind us. Also understand the mentality Isaiah needs to have in order for him to make it back into the league. But him saying quotes like this and the viral video of him crying after the 81-point performance in the crossover league a couple summers ago, I hope if he does never see another second of NBA action, that he can come to peace with the fact that his career might be over and move on to the next stage of his life, whatever that might be. If you look back at how far Isaiah had come to this point, from being the last pick in the draft and carving out this kind of a career, there's been guys taken first overall and not even come close to accomplishing the things Isaiah did in the NBA. I wish Isaiah, him and his family nothing but peace and happiness in their future. That's the end of the video. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about Isaiah Thomas? What was your favorite memory of his Celtics days? Should he be in the league today? Also, please do me a solid. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video until the end. Until next time, it's your boy Zed, and I'm out. Peace.